It was a normal Saturday afternoon, families shopping, music playing, and a 17-year-old kid named Jaden walking out of the mall with a brand new pair of sneakers. But within seconds, everything changed. Two officers spotted him, started whispering, and suddenly rushed toward him. "Hey! You! Stop right there!" Jaden froze, confused. Before he could even explain, they slammed him to the ground. Bags scattered. Phones started recording. People shouted, "He didn't do anything." But the officers didn't listen. They kept yelling, pressing him down harder. And then, the air went silent. Engines rumbled. A line of black SUVs stopped just a few feet away. 10 men in suits stepped out, badges flashing under the sun. The lead agent's voice echoed. "Get your hands off him." The cops froze instantly. Because the kid they just tackled was his nephew. Before we dive in, make sure you hit like and subscribe because stories like this deserve to be heard. The mall parking lot was busy, sunlight bouncing off cars, the sound of shopping carts clattering, people laughing and talking. Jaden stood near his car, setting his bags down, still smiling from finding his dream sneakers on sale. But behind him, two officers were closing in fast. "Hey! You! Stop right there!" The sharp command cut through the air like a siren. Jaden turned, startled. "Sir? Did I do something?" Officer Miller, tall and tense, hand on his holster, squinted. "You match a description. What's in the bag?" Jaden blinked, confused. "Just shoes, sir. I bought them inside. You can check the receipt." But Officer Hart had already moved closer. "Hands where I can see them." People nearby slowed down, watching. A mother whispered to her daughter, "What's happening?" The mall security camera rotated slightly, its red light blinking. Jaden raised his hand slowly. "Sir, I didn't do anything. I just came to shop." "Don't talk back," Miller snapped, stepping forward. He yanked the bag from Jaden's hand, dumping everything onto the asphalt. New sneakers, folded receipts, a phone charger, all sliding under a parked car. "Hey! Please, be careful!" Jaden protested. That's when it happened. Miller shoved him hard in the chest. Jaden stumbled back, losing balance, hitting the ground with a hard thud. Phones came out. Recording lights flicked on. A woman shouted, "He didn't do anything. He's just a kid." Another man, "Yo, leave him alone." That's not right. But the officers were in their own world now, adrenaline and ego taking control. Hart grabbed Jaden's arm, twisting it behind his back. Miller barked, "Stop resisting," even though Jaden wasn't moving. Jaden's voice trembled. "I'm not resisting. Please, just look at the receipt. It's in my pocket." Miller pushed harder, knee digging into his back. "Where'd you steal this from?" "I didn't steal anything." Jaden's voice cracked, half fear, half disbelief. The crowd was growing. Dozens of bystanders surrounded them, phones up, recording from every angle. "Yo, this is messed up," someone yelled. A woman in tears said softly, "He's just a teenager." The officers shouted again. "Everyone back up. Back up right now." But the people didn't move. They knew what they were seeing, another innocent kid humiliated for nothing. Jaden's phone lay on the pavement, screen still recording, camera pointed right at the officers. The lens caught everything, the shove, the knee, the fear in Jaden's eyes. Then, for a split second, silence. The world seemed to pause. A low rumble broke it, engines. Dark SUVs rolled in from the far end of the lot. Not one, not two, but several. Their tinted windows reflected the chaos. The officers didn't notice at first. They were too focused on pinning Jaden down. But the crowd went quiet. People began whispering. "Wait, who are they? Those look like government vehicles." Miller finally looked up, frowning, sweating. Hart froze mid-motion. The SUVs stopped in a line. Doors opened in perfect sync. 10 men stepped out, all in dark suits, sunglasses, and bulletproof vests. Their badges gleamed under the sun. One of them, tall with silver-gray hair, spoke with calm authority. "Officers, step away from that young man." Miller hesitated. "Who the hell are you?" The man reached into his coat, flipping open a badge, gold letters shining. "Federal Bureau of Investigation." "And that?" He pointed at Jaden, still on the ground. "Is my nephew." The air went dead silent. Miller's face drained of color. Hart slowly lifted his knee off Jaden's back, hands shaking. People gasped. Phones zoomed in. Jaden looked up, recognizing the voice. "Uncle Mike," he whispered. Agent Walters nodded once. "Yeah, kid. I got you." And for the first time that day, Jaden could breathe again. The parking lot stood frozen. Even the wind seemed to stop. Officer Miller's hand slipped off his holster. Officer Hart took a slow step back, eyes darting between the suited men and the shocked crowd. The word FBI echoed in his head like a siren. 10 agents spread out in a perfect semicircle around Jaden, calm, deliberate, silent. Each one carried the same aura, power, discipline, control. But only one man moved closer, Agent Michael Walters, Jaden's uncle. He knelt beside Jaden, helping him to his feet, brushing the dust off his hoodie. "Easy, kid," he said softly. "You're safe now." Jaden's hands were still trembling. He could barely find his voice. "Uncle Mike, they said I looked suspicious." Walters looked up, his calm expression fading into steel. He turned toward the 2 officers. "Suspicious," he repeated, voice low but deadly steady. "What exactly made him suspicious?" Neither officer spoke. The only sound was the wind brushing across the lot and the faint hum of engines. Miller stammered, "We got a report, a young male, black hoodie." "Shopping," Walters interrupted coldly. "That's what he was doing." "Shopping." A woman in the crowd shouted, "Yeah, we saw the whole thing." Another man raised his phone, "I got everything on video." The crowd began to shift forward, voices growing louder, stronger. They weren't just watching anymore, they were witnessing. Walters stood tall now, facing the 2 officers head-on. "Body cams on?" he asked sharply. Miller hesitated. "They, weren't recording, sir." "Of course not," Walters said quietly. He turned to one of his agents. "Agent Davis, document the scene." Immediately, the agent raised his camera, clicking rapid shots. Jaden's torn hoodie. The scattered shopping bags. The scraped concrete where he'd been pinned down. A mother holding her daughter whispered, "He could have been killed, for nothing." The little girl held her mother's hand tighter. Walters heard it, and his jaw tightened. He looked back at the officers. "You're both going to hand over your sidearms and badges," he said. "This is now a federal matter." Hart's lips trembled. You can't do that." Walters stepped closer, eyes like ice. "Watch me." The agents flanked the officers. One of them reached out, carefully taking their weapons. No shouting. No violence. Just quiet, controlled authority, the kind that comes from true power. Meanwhile, the crowd began to cheer. Phones lifted higher. Someone yelled, "That's justice right there." Another voice, "Finally, someone standing up for us." But Walters didn't smile. He just placed a hand on Jaden's shoulder. "You okay, son?" Jaden nodded slowly, still in shock. "I thought they were gonna hurt me, Uncle Mike. I didn't even do anything." Walter's voice softened. "I know. But you did the right thing, you stayed calm. You're safe now." He turned back to the crowd. "I want everyone here to keep those videos safe," he announced. "Don't delete a single frame. What happened here matters." The people nodded, some shouting in agreement. One woman said, "We got your back, Agent." The two officers stood pale and speechless, hands cuffed now by the same agents they had tried to intimidate moments ago. Walters gave them one last look. "You wear that badge to protect, not to humiliate. Today, you forgot that." The agents escorted the officers away, the crowd parting to let them pass. Jaden watched quietly, clutching his uncle's arm. As they walked toward the black SUVs, Jaden whispered, "Did you know I was here?" Walters shook his head. "No. But justice has a funny way of showing up where it's needed most." He smiled faintly, just enough to make Jaden exhale the fear he'd been holding in. Behind them, the crowd began to clap, not out of excitement, but relief. And as the FBI convoy pulled away, the mall returned to its calm. But everyone there knew they had witnessed something unforgettable. The scene was tense, but silent. Every phone was still recording, every eye fixed on the 10 FBI agents who had just surrounded the two officers. Jaden stood close to his uncle now, still trembling. His voice was quiet, barely audible. "They thought I stole something, Uncle Mike, all because of my hoodie." Walters looked down at him, jaw tight. "You don't owe anyone an explanation, son." He turned slowly toward the crowd, hundreds of faces watching, some angry, some emotional, all waiting to see what justice would look like this time. "Listen to me carefully," Walters said, voice steady and firm. "Everyone here, keep your cameras rolling." One of the bystanders shouted, "We're not stopping." Another man raised his phone higher, zooming in. Walters nodded once. "Good. Because truth deserves to be seen." He turned back to the officers. "Now," he said, his tone colder, sharper, "you're going to explain to everyone here why you tackled a 17-year-old without cause." Officer Miller's throat tightened. I told you," he matched the description. Walters took a step closer. "What description?" Silence. Hart tried to speak but couldn't. His voice died before the first word. Walters kept his eyes locked on them. "You know what I see? Two men who forgot what that badge stands for. It's not power. It's responsibility." The crowd murmured, agreeing, nodding, filming every second. Walter's voice grew quieter but heavier. "You thought you could bully a kid because you thought no one was watching. But you were wrong. The world's watching now." One of the agents, Agent Davis, handed Walters a tablet. On the screen was the mall's live security feed, capturing the entire event from above. He tilted it toward the officers. "See that?" Walters said. "That's every angle. Every second of what you did." Miller's face turned pale. Hart dropped his gaze to the ground. The crowd began to cheer louder. Someone yelled, "Hold them accountable." Another voice from the back, "No more cover-ups." Walters raised a hand, and the noise softened. "This isn't about hate," he said. "This is about accountability." He walked toward Jaden, putting a hand on his shoulder. This young man did nothing wrong. He was polite, cooperative, respectful. But he was treated like a criminal for shopping. Jaden's eyes welled up. "I just wanted to go home, Uncle Mike," he whispered. "I know, kid," Walters replied softly. "And you will. But not before they face what they've done." He nodded to his agents. "Take their statements. Seize their weapons. I want full reports filed before sundown." "Yes, sir," Agent Davis replied. The agents moved efficiently, collecting evidence, photographing the scene, and questioning witnesses. The two officers, once loud and aggressive, now stood silent, heads lowered, surrounded by flashing cameras and staring eyes. Then Walters turned to the crowd one last time. "I want you all to remember this moment. Because justice doesn't always wear a uniform, sometimes it arrives in silence, with proof, not violence." A woman near the front shouted, "You're a hero." Walters shook his head. "No, ma'am. Just an uncle doing his job." He looked at Jaden and smiled faintly. Let's go home. The crowd parted as they walked toward the line of black SUVs. Phones still recording, some people crying quietly. And as the convoy's doors closed, the reflection of the flashing red and blue lights danced across Jaden's face. He took a deep breath. For the first time since the confrontation began, he felt safe. The SUVs pulled away slowly, leaving behind silence and stunned onlookers. Everyone there knew they had witnessed something real. A rare moment when justice didn't just talk, it showed up. The flashing lights faded into a low hum. Jaden sat on the hood of a black SUV, knees shaking, breathing uneven. Beside him, his uncle, Agent Michael Walters, stood like a stone pillar. Calm. Composed. But inside, his blood boiled. He'd seen injustice before. He'd seen power abused, badges misused. But this time, it was personal. The two officers, Miller and Hart, stood cuffed near their patrol car. Their heads hung low, eyes darting everywhere but forward. The same crowd they had barked orders at was now filming them. Phones hovered in the air like judgment. Walters stepped closer, his shoes crunching on the gravel. "You know what I see right now?" he asked quietly. Miller didn't answer. Hart muttered, "We made a mistake." Walters' tone sharpened. "No. A mistake is dropping your coffee. This," he pointed toward Jaden, "this was a choice." The crowd murmured. Every word hit like thunder. Walters continued. "You looked at a kid, a child, and saw a threat. You didn't see his smile, his kindness, his respect. You only saw his color." Hart's voice trembled. "We thought he matched the suspect." "Don't," Walters snapped. "Don't hide behind a report. You tackled a teenager who was doing nothing but living his life." Jaden watched silently, his hands still trembling. His uncle's voice carried power, but it also carried something deeper, pain. Walters stepped closer, face to face with the officers. "I've spent 20 years in law enforcement. I've buried partners who died doing the right thing. And today, you disgraced that uniform. You turned it into a weapon." Miller's jaw clenched. His voice cracked. "We didn't mean." Walters interrupted, voice cold. "You didn't think. That's the problem." The silence that followed was heavy, like the whole parking lot was holding its breath. Then Walters exhaled, stepped back, and looked at his team. "Read them their rights." Two agents moved forward. The metallic click of cuffs tightening around the officers' wrists echoed in the air. The crowd erupted, cheers, claps, shouts of "That's justice." Jaden's eyes filled with tears, not of fear this time, but relief. Walters turned, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Hey. You okay, kid?" Jaden nodded weakly. "Yeah. I think so." He tried to smile. "I didn't know you'd come." Walters smiled faintly. "You didn't have to. The truth always finds its way to the right people." Jaden looked at the crowd, still cheering, some even crying. A man shouted, "You did nothing wrong, son." Another woman said, "Keep your head high, baby, you're stronger than they are." Walters turned back to the people. "Thank you for standing up," he said. "Thank you for recording. Without you, this story might have ended differently." He took a deep breath, voice softer now, for the camera's still recording. "This isn't about revenge. It's about change. Every badge, every gun, every title, it all means nothing if you forget compassion." The crowd grew quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop, just to listen. Walters looked back at his nephew. "Jaden, remember something," he said gently. "Never be ashamed of who you are. The world might see you one way, but you define yourself." Jaden nodded, eyes glassy. "I will." Walters smiled, proud, steady. "Good. Let's go home." He guided Jaden toward the SUV. As the agents drove off, the crowd parted again, applauding, filming, whispering words like hero and hope. And for the first time since the chaos began, Jaden looked up at the sky. And smiled. Because in that moment, he realized something powerful. Sometimes justice doesn't shout. Sometimes, it simply shows up wearing a badge and a last name you trust. Days later, the mall parking lot looked ordinary again. Cars moved. People shopped. Life continued. But for those who were there that afternoon, the silence still echoed with one memory: a teenage boy face down on the pavement, and a group of agents who said enough. The video had gone viral overnight. Millions watched it, frame by frame, the moment the officers tackled Jaden, and the exact second the FBI SUVs rolled in. News anchors called it a turning point in policing. Others called it a miracle caught on camera. Jaden stayed off social media for a few days. The comments, the messages, the interviews, it was too much. He wasn't a hero, he thought. He was just a kid who wanted new sneakers. His uncle, Agent Walters, sat across from him in the kitchen one morning, the smell of pancakes filling the air. "Kid," he said softly, "you know what courage looks like?" Jaden shrugged. "You?" Walters smiled faintly. "No. It's you. You didn't fight back. You didn't scream. You stayed calm, even when the world went crazy around you. That takes real strength." Jaden looked down, his voice quiet. "But why me, Uncle Mike? Why do they always see us like that?" Walters sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Because some people fear what they don't understand. But the only way that changes is if good people keep standing up." A knock came at the door. It was one of the FBI agents, a young woman holding a folder. "Sir," she said, handing it to Walters, "the internal affairs report is complete." Walters flipped through the pages, eyes sharp. Both officers, suspended indefinitely, pending charges for misconduct and excessive force. Bodycam footage confirmed what everyone had seen. Justice, real, tangible justice, was finally happening. Jaden watched his uncle sign the papers, then asked quietly, "Does this mean it's over?" Walters looked at him, his tone steady. "It means the truth won. But it's never really over. There'll always be another Jaden somewhere. Another kid who needs someone to step up." Jaden nodded slowly. "I want to be that someone one day." Walters smiled, eyes proud. "Then the world's already a better place." The two shared a quiet moment, no words, just understanding. Later that week, they stood outside the mall again. News vans, reporters, and cameras filled the lot. Jaden was nervous, but Walters nudged him forward. "Go on," he said. "Tell them what you told me." Jaden stepped up to the microphones, his voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. "I don't hate those officers," he said. "I just want them, and everyone watching, to think before they act. Because next time, someone might not have an uncle who can save them." The crowd fell silent. Reporters stopped typing. Even the wind seemed to pause. Jaden looked up, his voice firm. "Don't judge us before you know us. We're not threats. We're people." Walters stood behind him, eyes filled with pride. The boy who once shook with fear now stood taller than ever, calm, composed, and unbreakable. As they walked back to the car, Walters placed a hand on his shoulder. "See," he said quietly. "That's what real power looks like." Jaden smiled. "Not the badge?" Walters chuckled. "No, kid. The truth." The camera slowly zooms out. The crowd clapping. The sun dipping behind the mall. Two figures walking side by side, one in a suit, one in sneakers, both symbols of strength. And as the screen fades to black, the voiceover returns. In a world where injustice hides behind authority, sometimes it takes one act of courage to remind us that respect isn't given by power, it's earned by humanity. Sometimes the real battle isn't fought on the streets, it's fought in hearts. A kid walked out of a mall and into a nightmare, and yet, he walked out stronger. He didn't fight back with anger. He stood firm with truth. And that truth echoed loud enough to bring the system to its knees. Justice doesn't always arrive in sirens or uniforms. Sometimes, it walks in quietly and wears a last name you trust. If this story moved you, share it. Because the more people see, the more people wake up. And maybe, just maybe, next time, someone watching this will be the one to step in. Before it's too late.